Hi, I'm Carlin Borisenko. In early 2020, I was the knitting Democrat who accidentally went viral on the internet for going to a Trump rally and then left the party. I became the conservative darling, was on all the shows, traveled around the country, and then realized that conservatives were no better than Democrats. If there's one thing that I've learned, it's that both political tribes are two sides of the same coin. But it wasn't all bad. On my journey, I became obsessed with understanding the woke ideology and the culture war. I broke the story of the city of Seattle doing segregated training with its employees.
How bad has this stuff become? The city of Seattle has now put out, I'm not kidding you, this is according to Dr. Carolyn Borisenko, who's an organizational psychologist. The city of Seattle asked its white employees to voluntarily spend a day off in a training about their internalized racial superiority.
I broke the story that led to the first ever federal lawsuit against critical race theory in the schools. I broke the Coke Be Less White story, one of the biggest anti-woke stories of all time. It got over 30 million views. Coca-Cola's corporate headquarters even had to change their outgoing voicemail.
Throughout the past few days, you may have seen inaccurate reporting on the content of our recently launched diversity, equity, and inclusion training program.
I exposed the schools in Burlington, Vermont for grooming middle school children live on the internet. They called me an unwoke cult leader for that. And the Vermont Human Rights Commission slandered me publicly as being a hate channel. I even got called a hero in Breitbart for exposing that the Washington Post was writing a hit piece on Christopher Rufo. I have broken story after story after story about what's going on in the public schools, from Cambridge, Massachusetts, to autistic sex education, to the Department of Education in Michigan, literally training teachers all over the state how to groom children. I wrote a book called Actively Unwoke, the ultimate guide for fighting back against the woke insanity in your life. I host a podcast all about fighting back, and I'm downloading all of my knowledge to you on my Substack, carlin.substack.com. The world is a crazy place. We are literally surrounded by cults on all sides. On this show, we're going to do a deep dive into all aspects of the culture war, and I will show you the dark, dystopian underbellies on both sides. Here are the commitments I'll make to you. I will always tell you the truth. I will always bring you receipts. And if you stick with me, I promise you will see the world differently. Welcome to the cult. Please mount that like button for me and subscribe if you feel so inclined. Well, hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Welcome to The Cult. The Cult is a show that I do normally on Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. on this here YouTube channel. Now, our schedule this week is going to be, well, not consistent. And I'm going to explain why in a second. But guys, this is a very exciting week on The Cult because this week is the big final year-end, possibly last spy stream. No, I'm just kidding. This is obviously not going to be the last spy stream I ever do. I have way too much fun doing spy stream. But this is our big week. This is the week that I have been talking about. I have been waiting for. This week, our schedule for streaming is going to be a little bit messed up because we are doing a very special, very sexy teacher training spy stream in which we are going into a multi-day teacher training conference to show you exactly what your kids' teachers are being taught when you're not around. And Sarah says it's the bonanza of all spy stream. It is the spy stream to end all spy streams. It's going to be not one, not two, but 3 days. 3 days of content. The marathon of madness will continue until we all say uncle because we just can't take it anymore. Now, guys, remember, when I went undercover at the Socialism 2023 conference, it was a 3-day affair where I quite literally went to 3 days worth of sessions with the most hardcore radical revolutionary socialist activist in the country. And I'm going to tell you what, I was tired. I was overwhelmed. I was exhausted. And if you join me for this special supporter exclusive spy stream as well, I promise you, you will probably be feeling the same. But we are going to show you exactly what's going on in the schools, because when you go inside the teacher training, and we are going to be streaming this live on the internet, when you go inside the teacher training, you get a sneak preview of what is coming next in your kids' schools. And this is what investigative reporting and undercover reporting is. And I just want to prepare everyone for this. You have to sit around and listen to a lot of stuff in order to find those golden nuggets. Now, this is what we train for. This is what we do when we do Socialism Saturday every single week for hours, listening to hardcore socialists talk about their ideas. This is what we do most of the time during the weekday show, where we watch presentations from colleges, universities, pop culture, where these people are expressing their ideas. We have trained for this moment. But I don't want people to think that this is going to be like a barrage of like cringe. I mean, it might be, but we don't know exactly what they're going to say. We don't know what they're going to do. But I have a sneaking suspicion that we're going to get some good stuff out of this one. And I'm very excited to do that this week. And I'm going to tell you more about that in a second. But in preparation for that, I decided to do a little bit of prep work, because you guys know that basically my cult streams have turned into me doing research on the internet and you guys coming along for the ride of doing research on the internet with me. And it's a way I look into the far left, and it's a way I learn their language. It's a way I see what they're doing. It's a way I track different activists and what they're doing, because I like to use my time efficiently. And so if I'm going to be streaming anyway, and I have a crowd of people that are willing to do these deep dives into this niche, absurd, dystopian content with me, we might as well use our time productively. I don't believe in doing things like streaming video games on the internet. I mean, no shade on people who play video games on the internet. I mean, a lot of people want to watch that. A lot more people than want to watch hardcore socialism. I believe in using my time much more productively, though. So that's what we do here on this channel. And today we're going to be getting a little sneak preview of what we're going to be doing for Spy Stream this week. And I'm not going to tell you exactly why it's a sneak preview. You're just going to have to trust me that this is a sneak preview of what we're going to be getting in Spy Stream this week. We're going to be watching a presentation, and this is probably going to be split into two parts. I think we're going to do part one of this today, and we're going to do part two of it tomorrow. And there's a reason for that. I'm going to explain why. We're going to be watching a training from CECUS. CECUS is one of the main organizations that is pushing comprehensive sex ed into curriculum all over the country. Now, comprehensive sex ed, I know everyone is going to be shocked to hear this, but comprehensive sex ed is code for Marxism. I know. When we have a slide that says a co-sponsor of this presentation is the Sex Education Collaborative, it's almost like we have a group of collectivists that are sponsoring this presentation, and collectivism is code for what? Marxism! Yay! And so we're going to be watching this presentation, and we're going to talk about it, probably split into 2 days, because it's an hour-and-a-half presentation. And because it's an hour-and-a-half presentation, it will take us at least 3.5 hours to watch. As many areas of public life are working to address racial justice and equity, it is important to acknowledge that the field of sex education needs to be included in the conversation. Not only do practices and delivery of sex education need to be challenged and changed to meet the needs of youth of color, there is also a need for more research dedicated to this topic. This practice paper, centering racial justice in sex education, strategies for engaging professionals and young people, serves as a guide to providing racially just practices for those working in the field of sex education. We understand that much like any other work discussing diversity and inclusion practices, ding, 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 This isn't about presenting a list of things that will allow organizations to check a box or provide a one-size-fits-all approach. Described throughout these pages is the pursuit of racial justice and equity that requires a multi-layered effort to address the needs of both youth of color and communities in which they live. The need for racial justice and equity in the K through 12 sex education space. And they've got a link here. And I'm going to bet that goes to a paper of some sort. Now, I haven't read the paper. I'm not going to read the paper. Why aren't we going to read the paper? Because we're going to watch the presentation, and that's just going to have to be enough. I can't torture myself with reading these people and watching these people at the same time. James Lindsay can read all the fucking papers he wants. We're going to watch them, and that's going to be good enough. Don't worry about it at all, Grandma Nay. I hope you're doing okay. You look a little crazy in that picture, I'm not gonna lie, but welcome back. We miss you. We love you. Thank you for joining us today. It's an exciting week. So, guys, that's what's going to be on the docket today. We're going to work our way through as much of this presentation as we can. Now, the reason that this is going to be split into two parts is because it's Monday, which means I have a community supporter call at 7 p.m. Eastern, because when you become a supporter on my Substack, which is Carlyn, Karlyn, .substack.com, you get access to a variety of perks. This week, when you become a supporter, you are going to get access to the most epic spy stream conference infiltration we have ever completed in my community. That's going to be the big perk of the week, but you get some other stuff too. You also get access to 2 Zoom calls with me and my community every single week. They happen on Mondays at 7 p.m. and on Wednesdays at noon. Where you find the Zoom information is in the weekly Unwoke Roundup email that I sent out. So just click on that. And where you're going to find the Zoom links is you scroll all the way down to the bottom, and underneath this here red box, you're going to find links for our Monday community Zoom, which is today. You're going to find links for our Wednesday community Zoom, which is Wednesday at noon. You're going to find a link for Saturday, because Saturday we are doing a Bitchcraft call at 3 p.m., which is just an open Zoom call where we bitch and we craft. You're going to receive links to the supporter Discord, because we do movie night every single Sunday night in the supporter Discord. Last night we watched National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. It was supposed to be Life of Brian, but Jennifer made an executive decision. I couldn't stop her. I tried to talk her out of it, but it turned out to be a great movie night. I haven't seen that movie in years, and it was actually kind of like a really fun and heartwarming thing, and made the mood a little bit lighter. And so we did that. We also do writers group every Thursday night in the supporter Discord, and so you can join that as well. So you get lots of perks when you support my work. But of course, the big perk of the week is our big multi-day spy stream, which is going to be on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And so I will not be publicly streaming on those days, because I will be spy streaming on those days. Now, I still might do the debate this week, because I think there's like a Republican presidential debate this week. I might. I'm not going to guarantee it, because honestly, it's going to be 3 really full days, but I'm going to try. I like streaming the debate. You guys like streaming the debate. I think we're going to still do Nothing Remotely Controversial tomorrow night, but everyone's just got to hold on to their hats, because there's going to be an awful lot of content this week. And, I need to sleep sometimes too. Now, before we get into it, I have a couple other orders of business. I just want to remind everyone that if you're looking for some Christmas gifts, you can head over to my merchandise store, which is unwokeart.com. Let me pop the link in the chat on YouTube and over on Rumble as well. Hello to everyone watching on Rumble. I appreciate you as well. And in the Unwoke Art Store, I am doing a daily flash sale where you get 25% off one of my designs in the Unwoke Art Store. And today we're doing one of my favorite new designs. It's so apropos. We are doing the We're All Mad Here Mad Hatter design. And let me just show you this, because I have this t-shirt here in person. I mean, come on. It looks so cool. The printing on it looks so effing cool. It looks so haunting. I'm really excited by it. And so you can pick that up in the Unwoke Art Store today, only for 25% off. Of course, you'll still be able to get the We're All Mad Here design after today, but today's going to be the day to do it if you want it for 25% off. We got it on clothes. We have it on mugs and water bottles and a bag. I even have it on a candle. And actually, Queen Beth, Queen Beth of the chat, just bought my first candle that I've ever sold out of the Unwoke art store not too long ago. She bought a different design, but it's the same thing. It just has a different design on it. And so I was so excited to sell my first candle. I was like, oh my God, people actually want them. I hope they're really nice. I haven't even seen it yet, but I hope it's nice. We got journals, posters. I've even got, check this out. Check this out. A crushed velvet blanket. Maybe I kind of just wanted the blanket for myself. I'm just saying. Anyway, all that's available in the Unwoke Art merchandise store. And of course, I am doing a new merch deal every single day. So peruse around. We got lots of great merch in there for your Christmas gifts, or, if you want to pick up something for yourself, that's cool too. Now, I do want to give a quick plug that I also have some other people with merch stores in my community. And if you haven't checked them out yet, you really should. First, I want to look at Bot. Bot, you don't have any items listed? I thought you did. Oh no. Where's your store, Bot? Bot used to have a store. I don't know what's going on. Well, Bot used to have a store. And the reason I was going to plug Bot's store. Yeah, Bot's store. Bot, you have to get your store up. It's the holidays. I was going to plug it because Bot sent me this great Aries shirt. And I'm wearing it. I love it, Bot. And so I was going to plug Bot's store, but hopefully that will be back. It's botfactory.etsy.com. But also we have Sin's store. I don't know if Sin is here. I haven't seen her yet. But I do just want to plug Sin's store, which is sinscribbles.com. Sin, of course, is the matriarch of the community. She is a woman that has just gotten her kidney transplant after waiting years to get this transplant. She's doing great, and we love her. And Sin has this great store. She's got some great holiday designs where she puts her scribbles on different products. And I'm sorry, I think they look cool. I really do. I think Sin's stuff is just really cool. It's whimsical. It's fun. She's got her poetry on some stuff. She's got all sorts of great designs in the store that you can pick up. And I would definitely encourage, if people are looking for a holiday gift, I think they're unique. I think they're cool. And so that's going to be a place where you can go as well. And we love Sin and we love Bot. And Bot, get your store back up so I can promote it. Geez. The candles have all sorts of different smells. Hang on, I'll show you. So there are different options for the smells. There's clean cotton, sea salt and orchid, white sage and lavender, apple harvest, and cinnamon vanilla. I think that Queen Beth got the cinnamon vanilla one, which is probably the one that I would recommend. But, try whatever strikes your fancy, man. I hope they're like, all of the merch that I've gotten from this distributor has actually been pretty good. I haven't yet had a problem with any of the merch. But definitely let me know. Definitely let me know if you guys get a candle. I would definitely like to know your opinion on them. Well, Murphy's Pool, that is just a silly, silly question. I don't know why you would want to join a website that has no original content, no original journalism, shitty merch, and whose proprietor just spends all his time playing video games on the internet. But to each their own, we wish our less worthy competitors the very best of luck trying to keep up with me. He has failed admirably so far. I have no doubt that that's going to change. All right, guys, one more thing before we get started, because I just want to warn everyone. We might have some friends visiting us today. We might have some friends. Why might we have some friends? Well, because Ethan Ralph is having a little bit of a temper tantrum. Ethan Ralph needs a nap. Ethan Ralph absolutely needs to get laid. Ethan Ralph is, a little perturbed that I wrote an essay featuring him on one of my newer Substacks that I'm just kind of doing in my free time. This is a Substack about cancel culture, but I'm using Nick Fuentes as my protagonist about cancel culture because he's like the epicenter of all cancel culture things. And he just has all these interesting characters around him. And it's such good fodder that I couldn't help myself. And so I'm writing a very tongue-in-cheek Substack called Nick and I Cancel Culture, a Love Story, which is not even really so much about Nick Fuentes or even me or anything like that. It's about cancel culture, but I'm being tongue in cheek. I'm being like, I'm trying to do some sort of satire thing. All right. It's like very, what is it? It's like very how I learned to stop worrying and love the bomb sort of thing is the vibe. And I wrote this here essay about Ethan Ralph and Ethan Ralph's little crusade against Nick Fuentes, in which I called Ethan Ralph a mix between Idiocracy and the Bad Girls Club, and called his audience a bunch of trailer park trash. And no offense to people in trailer parks, because I was best friends with a girl who lived in a trailer park growing up. She was lovely. I have known many people who live in trailer parks who are perfectly nice people who I would never call trailer park trash. But can we just acknowledge that there is a stereotype about trailer park trash for a reason? And not everyone who lives in a trailer park is trash, but some of them sure as hell are. And I would put Ethan Ralph's low IQ, low disposable income audience squarely in the category of trailer park trash that get off on things like bad reality TV and stuff like that. It's just like really, really gross. And so I wrote this essay about that. And honestly, it wasn't even that bad of an essay. It really wasn't. But Ethan Ralph, because he cannot help himself, has been having a little bit of a temper tantrum about me. And he has been calling me fat. And he has been posting about me. And apparently he's going to do a show today about me at 6 p.m. where he's going to expose me. Now, of course, the things that Ethan Ralph is going to expose has been a smear campaign that's been run on me for over 2 years. And so I'm not actually that worried at all. Ethan Ralph can cry his tears. He can have his hissy fits. Everyone's heard it before. No one cares, Ethan. No one cares. But it would not surprise me if some of Ethan Ralph's low IQ trash audience ended up in our chat today. And you know what? If that happens, what we're going to do is we're just going to block them. We're not going to acknowledge them. We're not going to deal with them. Mods, if they do kind of invade our space and disrupt what we're doing, I'm just going to encourage you, no muting, no timeout. Just block them. Just remove them. They're not smart enough to be here. That's just going to be the way it goes. And Ethan Ralph can cry all the tears that he wants, but no one cares, bro. No one cares. All right, with that, that's enough preamble. Let's get into our presentation of the day. We are watching a presentation about centering racial justice in sex education. Please, everyone, do make sure you mount that like button for me. Please let everyone know to, if you have your friends come subscribe to the channel if they have not joined us yet. We really need to be doing a better job of spreading the word about how to speak socialist. And I, of course, have a very niche audience. So you got to be, if you guys, like, here's my thought process. If you guys are here and you're crazy enough to watch socialism with me, then you probably have friends that are also crazy and would like to come watch socialism with me. So let's spread the word, getting more people to understand this language. It's the key to the kingdom. We've got Naruto here. Thank you for being a member of the channel. I'm a little surprised that Congress was willing to kick out someone who may or may not have performed as a drag queen. Well, that's the Republicans shooting themselves in the foot yet again, isn't it? All right. Let's get this party started, guys. Let's see what they have to say.
And resources.
This meeting is being recorded.
That intentionally center racial justice and equity principles and practices within sex education. And we're also going to have an opportunity today to hear directly from young people about their experiences and what they want to learn. I want to also just note who this webinar is being hosted by the Future of Sex Education Initiative. That's a partnership of the Advocates for Youth, Answer, and SEEKUS, who seek to create a national dialogue about the future of sex education and to promote the institutionalization of comprehensive sex ed in public schools.
Okay, when I say comprehensive sex ed is Marxism, I'm actually not being smart when I say that. I really do mean that. If you see comprehensive sex ed in your kids' schools, you need to get a hold of that curriculum, FOIA that curriculum. I'm going to be getting access to something that will give me comprehensive sex ed curriculum. I can't talk too much about that right now, but let's just say that's going to happen. And if you but like that term specifically, comprehensive sex ed, that's Marxism, okay? That's how they're going to integrate queer Marxism. That's where they're going to teach all the crazy gender shit. So just really be on the lookout for that. CECUS is also an organization that you need to know about, because if you see CECUS in your kids' schools, that is a far left nonprofit that is their only job is to push comprehensive sex education into schools. And so if your school is partnering with CECUS or an organization like CECUS, you need to be on the lookout for stuff like that.
Sex Education Collaborative. It's a collaborative of 23 state, regional, and national organizations with extensive experience training educators to deliver school-based sex education. The SEC aims to support educators and administrators to provide high-quality sex education no matter where they are or what they need. And finally, WACSHN, the Women of Color Sexual Health Network. It's a group of women, femme-identifying, and gender-expansive sexuality professionals who focus
Femme-identifying, did everyone catch that? That's Marxism.
on the needs and sexual and reproductive health needs for women of color and other identifying folks. The true mission of this working group is to empower and to include more folks of color in the profession of sexuality, sexology, and sexual health. So for today's presentation, we're going to start with the what. We're going to hear from Chris Harley from CECUS and Dr. Rena Dixon from Fact Forward. They're going to share with us some lessons learned and recommendations for centering racial justice in sex education. And they will each share newly released reports that we hope will inform how you're going to move this work forward. Then we're going to focus on the why, and we're going to hear directly from a panel of young folks who are going to share their experiences with you.
Oh, good. You guys know that I just love it when organizations put children on the internet. You guys know that's my absolute favorite thing, when organizations groom children live on the internet. That's great. Speaking of JL, would you break your rule and watch today's video? No, I'm not going to watch his stuff. I can't. Guys, I cannot watch or listen to James Lindsay. I can't, because there is actually, I'm not being stubborn. I'm not being a bitch. The way that I analyze these things is I look for patterns in language, and I take in a boat ton of this content. And in taking in a boat ton of this content, I'm able to identify the patterns in language. But if I start integrating James Lindsay into what I'm doing, I'm going to have his voice and his language in my head. James Lindsay is not who I'm analyzing. And so there is a very specific reason I don't listen to his content. It's not because I think it's bad. I think he's great. I think he's the master. I don't agree with him on everything, but I think overall he does a really fantastic job and has been doing this longer than anyone else. But I cannot listen to him, because if I do, the language will be in my head and it'll get integrated in with all the rest of this, and it's not going to work. But I appreciate the suggestion, Kyle. And normally I would be more open to taking it, but like him specifically, like I'm basically doing qualitative research on the fly, and I can only integrate so many things and compartmentalize so many things in my head at once. And I'm already nearing my limits, okay? That's why.
And what they want to learn in sex education. And then finally, we're going to get.
Well, then go tell him to have a conversation with me, because that's the only way that's going to happen. I can't listen to his content. I would integrate it with everything else, but go tell him to have a conversation with me.
To the now what? And we're going to hear from Advocates for Youth about one concrete tool that you can use right now to implement sex education that's going to center on racial justice and equity.
Oh, good.
So I'd like to start with the what. And we're going to begin with Chris Harley, who is the president and CEO of CECUS. She's going to share details of a report co-authored by CECUS and WACSHN on race, sex, and politics that will be released tomorrow. How exciting. This
How
is going to look
exciting
at the ways
indeed.
that various populations of color experienced sexualization and how it impacts politics and systemics of oppression in schools. Chris will also discuss why it's so important to incorporate a racial justice lens into sex education programs and curriculum and address the basic question of why it matters and why this should be part of the discussion. I'm happy to introduce to you Chris Hartley. Welcome, Chris.
Thanks, Mariana. So good to see you, my partner in crime on this. So thanks to everyone for being here today and for joining us for this important conversation. I am really proud to share that tomorrow, Sekas and Wakshin will be publishing this report, Sex, Race, and Politics in the United States, a call to action to address racial justice in sex education. It's brand new. And what I want to say is that this publication really stems from an event that we participated in where we were in a room of sex educators where we spent 3 days together discussing racial justice, microaggressions. There were trainings, there were breakout groups, there was discussion. It was a wonderfully well-rounded event, really focusing on racial justice. And then at the end, we received a comment that was like, that was a really nice couple days together, but why does it matter? I'm a sex educator. And it was this light bulb moment for me that as we're talking about racial justice, as we're centering the needs of communities of color, there was this ongoing perpetuation in the sex ed field of kind of trying to assume a colorblind approach to human sexuality, as though communities of color can separate out.
Pop quiz, why is a colorblind approach bad according to socialists? Why don't socialists want people to take a colorblind approach? Anyone know? If you guys wonder what I'm doing, I'm making some little tassels for my Groiper shawl. I'm finishing my Groiper shawl with tassels. So that's what I'm doing. But I'm listening to. Yes, so colorblind is bad because ignoring race is considered to be racist by these people. Why? Give me more. Because a colorblind society is stable and not revolutionary, sure. Well, yep, they do consider race to be a social construct, but that's not why. Ignores, yes, this is part of it. It ignores the realities of systemic racism, which of course we know systemic racism is caused by capitalism, because the ultimate goal, the way they're going to solve systemic racism is by abolishing capitalism. It promotes equality. This is the best answer yet, Ninja Artist. Congratulations, gold star for you. Because color blindness, which means not making decisions based on people's skin color, promotes equality, not equity. And equity is the way they're going to abolish systemic racism, which means abolishing capitalism, because capitalism and equity can't really exist in the same space, because capitalism is based off of individualism and meritocracy, whereas equity is based off of collectivism and a redistribution of resources. Congratulations. Seeing race as part of the struggle, that's a great answer, Nick. Anti-racism is anti-capitalism. That's right, Prometheus. Exactly. Well done, guys.
Their racialization from our sexual identities. And so this report is really an effort to try to pull those threads together, connect the dots between how communities of color have had their sexuality racialized and demonized and weaponized in ways that then inform the public policies that create the systems of racial discrimination and oppression that we are continuing
Systems
to fight
of
against.
discrimination, that means capitalism.
To look at how these manifest in the classroom as well. And then, trying to connect the threads with the national sex ed standards that were released in 2020 to help, again, sort of connect the dots between this history, the realities of today, and the ways in which sex education can play a really vital role, and sex educators can play a really vital role in helping to recognize the basic humanity and normalcy of the sexuality of communities of color. So our basic thesis is that white supremacy demonizes the sexuality of communities of color as a form of population control to maintain power over
What?
racial and ethnic groups through political, economic.
See, this is why I keep trying to tell people, because I've heard them say this at in-person conferences, but I don't think I've heard them say it in the online ones. These people are not like depopulation activists. In fact, these people are afraid that the right is trying to depopulate. They're afraid that the right is trying to engage in eugenics. She just said it. Hang on, I want you to hear this, because I hear all the time that these people are degrowth activists and about, like, you know, they're like a death cult because they want everyone to die. No. These people are deathly afraid, and I heard this at the reproductive justice conference I went undercover at in April too. These people are deathly afraid that the right is going to engage in a campaign of eugenics against them. Listen to her say that again.
Of the sexuality of communities of color. So our basic thesis is that white supremacy demonizes the sexuality of communities of color as a form of population control. To maintain power over racial and ethnic groups through political, economic, and social dominance. And I think that we can see this inherent fear.
Did you notice that she just defined white supremacy as a system of political, social, and economic dominance? Let's listen to that again. This is proof, guys, that white supremacy is not about skin color, because if it was just about skin color, how could white supremacy be about political, economic, and social control?
Is the basic humanity and normalcy of the sexuality of communities of color. So our basic thesis is that white supremacy demonizes the sexuality of communities of color as a form of population control to maintain power over racial and ethnic groups through political, economic, and social dominance. And I think that we can see this inherent fear popping up again in the out loud conversations about great replacement theory. This idea that it's a life or death scenario concerning the fate of white America, that if we don't stop non-white populations growth from happening, the country is on a suicidal path to no longer be the America that it has historically been, or this
is an example of them using the right's obsession with race against the right. I hope everyone picked up on that.
It is perceived of in kind of a white supremacist imagination. You know, this conversation, and I'm seeing more and more pop up in public policy conversations looking at the rise of the radical right, and in the kind of policy conversations that are happening in conservative circles right now. And the fear is that this theory often coincides directly and indirectly with calls for violence. And so there is a real need for us as people who support positive, healthy human sexuality development to recognize that we have to stop those conversations that weaponize and demonize sexuality for some groups and not for others, clearly. I do want to say that it was really hard to write this entire publication and talk about all of the different ways in which this manifests. And so we do have a caveat that in the document that we were not able to capture all of the ways in which these threads intersect together in these ways. And we also wanted to recognize that much of the historical discussion used gender binaries that can erase sexual orientation, the gender spectrum, and other intersectional identities. And so we kind of...
She just apologized for using the gender binary. Of course, the goal of queer Marxism is to abolish the gender binary. So of course she would apologize for using the gender binary.
Recognize that, but wanted to still have this conversation where we're looking at the ways that racialized sexuality shows up. Next slide. So this is a really messy slide, but I think it sort of exemplifies why this is so important, right? We argue that sex educators must have a shared understanding of how racialized sexual identities have impacted the lived experiences of communities of color in America, and recognizing that in some instances that these stereotypes have been used as a justification of public policy, again, that creates these systems of discrimination. So there's a timeline that explores sort of key moments in history, and then we spend some time breaking down the ways that stereotypes have been used to define communities of color. So we look at the ways that indigenous communities have been subjected to acts of genocide, including forced abortion, sterilization, and the prevention of parenting, which includes the forced removal of children from target populations to be raised by the dominant group. We see that play out in public policy in the United States. And this is important because, for example, there's the history of Indian boarding schools where, again, young indigenous youth were taken from their families and forcibly removed. We now know that over 200 children died as a result of this practice. But it's not as though that ended in the 1800s. In 2020, the Supreme Court, no, not 2020, 2012, the Supreme Court took up a case of the Indian Child Welfare Act, where they eradicated the protections to keep Indigenous youth in their tribal communities in favor of allowing them to be adopted out by non-Indigenous communities, which perpetuates the way in which Indigenous populations experience cultural genocide. We talk about the legacy of sexual control during enslavement, but how post-slavery, Black women continue to be hypersexualized and as a result, have seen a redoubling of efforts to control their reproduction. That Black women in particular are simultaneously shamed and penalized for exercising reproductive autonomy. I think we see what's happening right now in the fight around abortion, exemplifying the ways in which women of color in particular are put at the forefront of being attacked for exercising reproductive autonomy. I'll talk about how Black men have been cast as violent and dangerous sexual predators, and again, how that continues to contribute to over-policing of Black communities. We talk about non-European immigration and the ways in which immigrant women in particular have been cast as dangerous, sexually promiscuous, and a threat to American values.
What?
That these stereotypes are...
I hear the right casting white women as sexually promiscuous is way more of a threat to American values. That's funny.
Linked to access to public benefits and citizenship. And in the last 10 to 15 years, there have been upticks in conversation on public charge and whether or not immigrant communities should be able to access to public benefits they're eligible for, as well as attacks on so-called anchor babies in the DACA program, in which immigrant children are, there's an effort to remove their eligibility for citizenship. So I wanted to make clear all of these things are interconnected, that what's happening in specific communities of color may manifest or rematerialize across other communities of color at different points in history and in time, and yet replicate these kind of racialized trauma that different communities experience. These are also all examples in which public policy was created where weaponized sexuality of communities of color were used to justify adverse public policies that create these systems of oppression that we fight against. And so it's really important for us to connect these dots and to understand that when we demonize the sexuality of specific population groups, the public policies that result from that weaponization lead to essentially attacks to prevent these communities from being able to take root and thrive in this country. Next slide. Okay, and so then the document starts to look at specific threads in which public policies have evolved over time that target particular types of particular veins of access for communities of color. So we look at immigration policy. And one of the things that we look at is that the very first immigration law is the 1875 Page Act. And this law basically cast all Asian women. So this was enacted during the time when Chinese people were coming to the United States as part of the gold rush. And the Page Act specifically targeted Chinese women, casting them as lewd and immoral prostitutes and preventing them from being able to immigrate to the United States. And this was an effort to prevent Chinese families from thriving in America, from preventing them from happening in America. But this is the very first immigration law. And so all subsequent immigration law is based off of this precedent. It's restrictive and it primarily targets non-European population groups, their ability to migrate, their ability to access public benefit programs.
Do you notice that this is not as much about sex ed as it is about immigration? Why is that?
Their right to claim U.S. citizenship. We also look at access to public benefit programs. Certainly the way in which Black women's sexuality has been weaponized and viewed with suspicion in their ability to raise families, to have autonomy over their reproductive abilities, continues to play out today, where, over and over again, not only does the law really attack their, the ability of low-income families, in particular community women and families of color, from accessing public benefits programs, but tying all kinds of restrictive tests to this access as a way of both shaming and weaponizing, demonizing these communities from accessing these programs, even when we know that these programs benefit all Americans and especially low-income white families. And so it's this way in which sexuality is weaponized and demonized in public policy that plays out.
But it's not sexuality that's being
I think I'm going over time, so I'm gonna skip to the next slide.
Yes, please go ahead. Move forward.
And then we try to tie the threads to how this shows up in public schools. We talked about the Indian boarding schools and the forced cultural assimilation and genocide. We also look at segregation policies and school resourcing, where we know that under-resourced schools are less able to teach to comprehensive sex education programs, and the ways in which resourcing of schools plays out with charter school fights, where youth of color, are disproportionately directed towards special education, and in the way that those reductions in support for schools contribute to policing and school-to-prison pipelines. So all of these factors playing out in the way that particularly youth of color and our most vulnerable youth in under-resourced schools fail to receive the kind of support that they need because of these kinds of policies. We also recognize the way in which abstinence only until marriage programs put a specific burden on kids of color through their success sequencing ideology that lays blame to young people who engage in sexual activity outside of marriage as a way of, saying that their lack of or potential lack.
Do you know why they attack abstinence only education? And listen, I am not in favor of abstinence only education in any way. I think it's a really bad effing idea. I think the reality is that the vast majority of people are going to have sex before they get married. And if conservatives really wanted to prevent unwanted pregnancy, then teaching kids how to use a condom is a really effing good idea. However, let's put ourselves in the minds of a socialist. Socialists want to abolish the nuclear family because the nuclear family upholds capitalism by being the breeding ground for the future generation of proletariat worker. That's social reproduction theory. Okay. And so if one of the goals of the left is to abolish the nuclear family, they don't want kids waiting until they get married to have sex. That's like the very last thing that they want. Because, it's funny. I look at someone like Isabella Moody and her husband, what's his name, Josiah. They're these two young conservative commentators, and they're so cute. They really are. And they have this little, like beautiful little baby. And they talked about like they well allegedly waited to have sex until they got married. I'm not sure I believe that, but okay, let's just play in the land of that reality for a second. They've talked about how like they didn't have sex until they got married, and he made her want it so bad, and then he forced her to get married to get it, essentially, and then they had a kid almost immediately. And I wish them well and all that stuff, but that's like those are the type of people that socialists hate, because they don't want people forming nuclear families, and they especially don't want people forming nuclear families and having children when they're young. So that's why I think they're against abstinence only education. Even though I personally think that abstinence only education is a really bad idea. Um, they think it's a bad idea for different reasons. And this is an example of why you always need to understand the why of something. It's not enough to say, I'm against abstinence only education, because the reason that I'm against abstinence only education is very, 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 very different than the reason that they're against abstinence only education. Okay.
Lack of economic success is directly attributed to that. And again, that message is specifically geared towards communities of color. Okay, next slide. So then the last thing that we wanted to do was try to make this useful and user-friendly for sex educators. So not only is this a call to action, but it is a resource for helping to embed some of these lessons and ideas into sex ed curriculum. And so one of the things that we do is we offer a series of questions for sex educators to look at and consider in the way that they approach sex education, to make sure that they are able to speak directly to the needs and realities of the young kids of color who may be in the classroom and curriculum with them. And so I'm going to
Also, did anyone else find it a little racist that she basically implied that like white kids were perfectly fine waiting until marriage, but it was just those black kids that just couldn't help themselves to have sex? Like, and again, I don't think it's realistic for people to wait till marriage to have sex. I also just think it's a really bad idea in general, because not everyone is sexually compatible, and that's just the way it is. And you don't want to have bad sex for the rest of your life if that's the only person you're ever going to sleep with. But I do find it to be a little bit racist that she basically implied that those black kids just couldn't help themselves, whereas the white, it's like, really?
to stop there, because I think the subsequent conversation is going to really tease this part of the report out much more thoroughly and in depth. But we do hope that this report is helpful in hopefully putting to bed the idea that human sexuality is colorblind and universal, and that there are specific ways in which the weaponization of sexuality for specific racialized and ethnic groups plays out in US policy, and that we as sex educators must take on a direct and clear role in challenging, pushing back, and undermining those attacks on human sexuality for racialized community groups, in order to reset the conversation around some of these public policies and undermining the justification that allows for them to exist. So I will conclude there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Chris. I'm so excited that this report
She's got quite a look, I have to
is
say.
now going to be
I have to say,
available to the
so
public, and that
one of the things that I really did enjoy about being at the socialism conference that I went undercover at is I have never seen so many giant afros in my life. And it's not just because they're like it's not like I haven't been around Black people or anything like that. That's not why. This is like a very specific socialist thing where it's like they are plentiful. And I love that look. I wish I could do that with my hair. I love that look. I think it's really sexy. And so it was actually really cool to see all the different hairstyles at the socialism conference because there was a lot of look. And so I have a great appreciation with this. Yes, exactly. Everyone copies Angela Davis because Angela Davis had the giant ass afro. And come on, can we all admit that like Angela Davis may be crazy, but she carried that look. She pulled it off.
People can use it to help center the way that they want to do their work, and in particular to really be clear about how they're going to engage and operationalize racial justice in their sexuality education. Thank you so much for coming today and sharing this with us. Always happy to work in partnership with you. All right, wonderful folks, we have gotten off to a great start, and I am so excited as we transition to our next presenter. We are now going to hear from Dr. Rena P. Dixon, who is the Director of Community Investment and Impact at Fact Forward. Just a personal note, they have an amazing summer institute that I was excited to be a part of. And if you don't know about it, I'm going to need you to get on it, get to know about it so you can be there next year. I'm going to be there next year. It's a wonderful conference, really great information, great presenters.
Wait.
Wonderful time.
What did she say?
I call it Dr. Rena's.
Hang on. What was it? Amazing Summer Institute. Okay. We'll keep that in mind. Thank you.
Get to know about it so you can be there next year. I'm going to be there next year. It's a wonderful conference, really great information, great presenters, wonderful time. I call it Dr. Rena's conference. But Dr. Rena is going to share with us the details of the practice paper that she co-authored with other members of the Sex Education Collaborative, Centering Racial Justice in Sex Education, Strategies for Engaging Professionals and Young People. So this paper that was released in May for Sex Ed for All Month serves as a guide to providing a racially just and equitable practice for those working in sex education. Dr. Rena will share suggested recommendations that are outlined in the practice paper to provide the field with tangible strategies to keep the conversations going and the progress moving forward. I'm excited to introduce to you Dr. Rena Dixon. Hey, friend.
Hey, friend. Thank you for the fabulous introduction. And thank you, Chris, for the wonderful setup, because I think what we're going to get into next is going to dovetail very nicely into what actually racial just and equitable inequity in a curriculum and in administrative practices for sex educators looks like in practice. So a little bit of background. We went on this journey through the Sex Education Collaborative.
Says melanin twists out something. I hope we get a good view of the rest of her shirt before this is over.
Around December of 2019, when we realized that there needed to be some type of racial justice and equity framework around sex education. And we thought we were going to create standards, much like the professional learning standards. And we decided to move away from that. We realized that it wasn't about a checklist. And we had some funding to be able to do key informant interviews to figure out what that would look like. And what blossomed was this.
Is this actually what it says? Did you Google that and find that shirt? I have to know what this shirt says.
This beautiful document that was released in May that is a true labor of love, of collaboration, of understanding what it means to be a racially just sex educator, and how do you support those Black and brown sex educators that you may have on your staff. And then as you're building curriculum and programs, what does that look like in practice? So one of the things that we found in starting our research project was that Black and brown youth are more likely to receive sex education that is negative and shaming. It also led us to find that it's assumed that Black and brown youth are already sexually active and that they are sex is taught to them in a way that
Well, I think there's also truth to this as well. And again, we're talking about among socialist activists here, so everything about them is some sort of like political statement. So wearing natural hair is also a sign to not support capitalism by buying hair relaxers, chemicals to get straight hair. Yeah, I think there might be some truth to that. Oh, twist out. Okay, okay. It's a type of protective hairstyling. I understand now. I understand. Thank you. Thank you, chat, for educating me. I appreciate it. Oh, Melanin is a hair care brand. Okay. All right. I understand. Now, see, we put all the pieces together.
is seemed as dangerous, inherently dangerous. So we want to be able to denote how do we change the narrative so that the education is really equitable and centers Black and Brown youth in their lived experience, as well is a lot of the things that Chris was talking about in her presentation of we know how Black and Brown bodies have been politicized. How do we flow that over into a curriculum? So through our key informant interviews, we found that there were three real big themes that emerged, which were the curriculum. What are the guiding principles of a curriculum? What does the content need to look like? The temperament of the educator. So what internal and external factors do you need to have and understand as a sex educator? And then what are the administrative practices? Because it's more than just sending someone out to do this curriculum. You actually need to support the people who are doing it. And Black and Brown sex educators have normally been put into situations where they are not allowed to thrive and present their best selves when doing this work. So I want to take some time to
You know what's ironic is like all of this is against capitalism, right? We know that we are hip to the lingo, as it were. But one of the main talking points that these like lower level activists have, because these are not, I don't perceive these, I could be wrong. I don't perceive these people to be real socialist activists. These people are like a level down from it. They might have socialist tendencies, but they're not like in the activist circles. The reason I say that is they're not fully speaking the language. They're speaking words here and there, and the words they're speaking are like years out of date from where the socialists are now. And so it's like it's the trickle down effect. Like you have the radical revolutionary socialist activists up here, and then like everything they say and do trickles down. Okay. So these are like your run of the mill progressives. But what's ironic, and this was a big talking point, this presentation is about a year old, but it was a big talking point a couple years ago where they were constantly talking about how you had to pay Black people to do, well, it was the riots in 2020, wasn't it? You had to pay Black people to do this work and only Black people to do this work because Black people are typically underrepresented in the work, and therefore it is your obligation to pay Black people to do the work, you know? And so what's ironic about that is we know all this is just an attack on capitalism. We know that's the end goal, but they're going to use an attack on capitalism to try to guilt and struggle session you in to supporting their activists. Because keep in mind, the people that they support, it's not about paying every Black person, is it? It's not about paying every Black person. It's about paying the Black people that support the political ideology. Because, of course, if you're Larry Elder, you're the Black face of white supremacy. If you're Enrique Tarrio, you are the face of multiracial whiteness, according to the Washington Post. So it's not about paying all Black people. It's about paying very specific Black people. And so they're basically trying to struggle session the public in to financially supporting their activists.
Focus on the curriculum aspects and what we found out about guiding principles. And what really emerged were the 5 main principles: ethics, mutuality, and care. So understanding that we have an obligation to treat others and organize social relations and institutions and structures around ethics and mutuality. That's one of the core foundations of public health, but it really needs to be enforced when talking about sex education in the classroom and making it racially just. Another avenue is autonomy and choice, establishing bodily autonomy and choice as a right of every human being, regardless of age. It's important for us to influence that with our youth, especially youth of color, because they may not have had that impressed upon them before. Understanding that every body is valuable, appreciating diversity and worthiness and respectability for the need of all kinds of bodies, not just one type, not just one color.
It reminds me of that. Does anyone remember the sex ed video that we watched, the middle school sex ed video, where it was maybe I should pull this video up and watch it real quick. Hang on, let me see if I can find it. This was a sex ed video that was shown in middle schools about why you shouldn't refer to porn as sex ed. And one of the reasons that they gave as you shouldn't refer to porn to learn about sex was that porn created unrealistic expectations for the bodies that would show up because if you watch porn as sex education, you might get the impression that the only people who have sex are white people with hairless bodies, whereas the reality is that you're going to be sleeping with the fat people, the ugly people, all this stuff. And it was the best. Hang on, let me see if I can find it really quick because it was funny as hell. Porn is not sex education. I just found it. Okay, hang on. We have to watch this real quick. It's only 2 minutes. It's so great. This is not safe for work. If you have kids in the room, you need to send them out of the room or cover their eyes right now. Now remember, this is middle school. I'm not joking when I say this is taught in middle school, and if this company has their way, this would be taught in elementary school as early as kindergarten too. I'm just warning you, this video has nudity in it. It's cartoon nudity, but everyone has had a chance to cover the eyes of any children or remove them from the room. Okay. Let's see what middle schoolers are learning.
Oh, hi guys. You're just in time for my first online driving lesson. This is the best way to learn how to drive. At least that's what my dad says. Anyway, so here we go. 2 hands on the wheel, gear in drive. Whee! What the? Okay, I'm okay. Whether you're looking for it or just bump into it, viewing porn is a common experience for a lot of teens. And while it's completely normal to be curious about sex, bodies, and how things work, porn is not the best source of sex education. Let's see some of the differences between porn and real life. Pornography often uses enhanced breasts and penises. The actors are often waxed to have no hair. In real life, you will typically see bodies with a variety of skin tones, body shapes, sizes, and abilities. Porn uses exaggerated special effects and other movie-making tricks to produce fantasy, such as semen from a penis being ejaculated much farther than is humanly possible. Additionally, people with vulvas often have easy and frequent orgasms, which also does not reflect real life. Pornography can often involve multiple partners with no mention of methods of protection, since pregnancy and STDs are a real-life concern. In pornography, sexual behaviors often take place without the context of any relationship, let alone one with any degree of emotional intimacy nor equity between partners. In real life, many people find that sex feels better when it's in the context of an intimate and caring relationship. So, if you want to get real answers about puberty, sex, and relationships, you should turn to the trusted adults in your lives, or get honest information from healthcare providers, libraries, bookstores, educational websites, and apps or bots designed to provide sex education. Until next time, don't forget to visit.
So, there you have it, guys. Why you shouldn't learn about sex from porn is because you will not be sleeping with beautiful white people with hairless bodies. You will be sleeping with the fat people with hair all over them. And and porn creates unrealistic expectations for women having orgasms, and they're like, you really shouldn't expect to have this many orgasms, women. Or excuse me, people with vulvas. Anyway, yeah, that's being taught in middle schools, and I'm not actually joking about that. Okay, I saw a chat from Gold Becoming. There was an article in the BDSM community that said the Spanko term red bottom should not be used because Black people cannot produce the idealized red bottom. Well, maybe they just aren't spanking hard enough. Thank you for that golden nugget, Gold Becoming. I appreciate that. Let's go back to our video.
Sure that our education content is LGBTQI plus inclusive, and how we are acknowledging students of color and their lived experiences around all types of gender identities and sexual identities. Also, collaboration and interdependence, knowing that there is a lot of intersection in the work that we do and how it relates to sex education. So talking about how those are intertwined, and not just, and one of our key informants noted that an interjustice principle, but is needed, but we just can't do it alone. So it's really important to focus on how can we collaborate to make this happen. Also, when looking at curriculum, we want to look at content to understand what content should be included in a curriculum that's focused for Black and Brown youth. And that really goes back to a lot of things that are traditionally not included. So looking at issues that affect different communities, this isn't a one-size-fits-all approach. Different communities in different pockets of the United States, or wherever you might be, it doesn't have to be the United States, experience things differently based on their history, based on culture of the region that they live in, and that has to be brought into any type of curriculum that you are doing. You also want to talk about social policy. What Chris was referencing before in her presentation is super important to include, because that fuels how we feel about.
Why do you have to teach social policy when you're in a sex education class? Why would teaching social policy matter in a sex education class? Like, is social policy going to impact your sex life? It really shouldn't. I mean, maybe it should. Maybe it does for some of you. I don't know, but like, it really, I don't know. What possible reason could there be? Could it be they're using sex ed class to train students how to be queer activists because sex is political on the left, because the left can't do anything without it being political, because sex ed is the storefront for Marxism? Ding, ding, ding. Exactly. Exactly.
Issues, what we've been taught, how our elders in our communities have taught us and brought us up. So unpacking that and understanding it in terms of a sex education curriculum is important.
God, Trendolin, we just listened to the Boner song the other day. God. All right, because Trendolin wants to hear the Boner song. Hang on. Sent me a $22 super chat, which means we need to play the Boner song. Has anyone here not heard the Boner song yet? Because I think a lot of people have. But has anyone here not heard the Boner song yet? Just let me know in the chat. Let me know in the chat. It's okay to admit it if you haven't heard the Boner song. Talking Story has not heard the Boner song. Alexis has not heard the Boner song. Tim hasn't. Jathy hasn't. Tim hasn't. Keynote's been a minute. Oh God, illustrate. Oh God. Okay. There are a lot of people who haven't heard the Boner. See, I thought that everyone in my chat had already heard the Boner song because there've been like several streams where we've played this, but I sometimes forget that not everyone watches every single minute of content that I do. All right, well, if you haven't heard the Boner song, you can thank Trendolin. You are about to be in for a treat. Thank you, Trendolin, for the super chat, and just enjoy. This is the most wholesome thing that you're going to watch all day. All right? You're going to have it stuck in your head. It's going to be great. Let's go.
Well, I need to see what my life is about. Has Martin Flounder figures it out? Sure feels funny to know I'm not alone, right on the money. He stands up on his own. Since I was little, he's always been my friend, but now my middle can beat me around the bend. Oh no, 'cause that's how the boner grows. That's how the boner grows. Tell me I'm not alone. Out in the sand we make impressions where we're at might come in handy if you need to change a flag. Oh, my crazy compass is way out of control, and my equator grows another pole. Oh, that's how the boner grows. That's how the boner grows. It's not really They say it's normal. Each guy gets his own, so we've erected all these monuments in stone. In stone. That's how the boner grows. 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 So I'm never alone.
All right. That was the boner song. If you let us know what you thought if you never heard the boner song. And Trendlin has this is the last one, Trendlin. I'm not playing another one, okay? I know what you it's not the non-binary rabbit song. I know what you're talking about. Oh god damn it. Hang on. I'm getting all these spam calls from pollsters that are polling in New Hampshire. All right, this is the one you mean, right, Trendlin? Expressing myself my way. All right. This is the last thing we're going to watch before we go back to serious business. And again, I want everyone to remember these are legitimately taught in school, okay? This I know it's funny, but what we're about to watch is a cartoon made for middle school children to teach them that they're trans and non-binary. Okay? And what this teaches kids is that if they're trans and non-binary, more people are going to be their friends and more people are going to like their pictures on social media. That's literally what this teaches. It's funny. It's got a catchy goddamn song. But yes, these are in schools. These are in schools all over the country. Yes. Yes. You're welcome. Yeah. The company that made these has an article on their website. So this is made by a company called amaze.org. You can go onto amaze.org and watch them all, which is why we know about this, because we've done several streams where we watched all their videos. But the company that made these has an article on their website about why sex ed should start in kindergarten. So let's see.
No matter how you're born, we each have a style. I'll tell you in a while exactly what I like.
Ariana and Renee, they both are born girls. They go into their changing rooms. Ariana loves twirls. That's not for Renee. Pink will not do. All girls don't wear dresses. They wear pants too. Has Renee lost her mind? What's running through her head? Ariana can fix this. No is what she said.
When you put it on, you do a little groove. You know you've got to move. That's how you know you've got it right.
This is me, who I am. See me in full color, me like no other. Originality.
No matter how you're born, we each have a style. I'll tell you in a while exactly what I like.
Bryce Bryce and Jason. They both are born boys. They go into their changing rooms. Bryce jumps out with joy. Jason has a different idea. The sweater is where it's at. Bryce has to fix this. Here, try this or that. Wait just 1 second. Don't tell him how to dress. Ariana knows this. Only Jason can express.
This is me, who I am. See me in full colors, me like no other.
Exactly. Exactly.
How you're born, we each have a style. I'll tell you in a
Wait
while
for it.
exactly what I like.
Darla and Charles, one girl and one boy. They go into their changing rooms. Charles is feeling coy. Others are thrilled with the look, but Charles is quite unhappy. Let's try this again. Yeah, this is snappy. Some are confused. They just don't understand. Charles, now Charlotte is certain. Ariana's her biggest fan. Some might keep their distance, but others will come around. Come on over, Darla. Show us what you found. Darla had something on, but is not quite convinced. She wants to try again, yet she still gives a wince. Nope, not right either. Why can't she decide? Sometimes it takes time, only she can find her stride. Darla presents an outfit. The new name is Darren. Now everything feels right. The person within he's sharing.
When you put it on, you do a little groove. You know you've got to move. That's how you know you got it right.
This is me, who I am. See me in full colors, me like no other. Originality.
Here we have Skylar, born a boy or girl. Not interested in the girl look. Won't give the boy look a whirl. Skylar wants a new path, and it isn't one of those. This is a unique look from Skylar's head to toe.
When you put it on, you
It's a non-binary look.
You know you've got to move. That's how you know you got it right.
This is me, who I am. See me in full colors, me like no other. Originality, who I am. See me in full colors, me like no other. Originality.
Yes, Kino, the scarf look was a non-binary look. Indeed. Indeed. And the entire point of all of this is to get likes. And I really liked Reagan's comment because she said, notice how they're performing gender through their clothes, which is exactly what we heard from that Yale University professor when he was talking about Judith Butler and gender performativity, which is also the point of Drag Queen Story Hour, because Drag Queen Story Hour is all about teaching kids that gender is a performance and that it can change, because if gender is a performance, then you can change your gender. Anyway, thank you, Trendlin, for this nice little detour. I do appreciate it. Let's go back to business now. We've had enough fun, all right? We have about a half hour left before I have to go for my community call. Guys, if you haven't yet, please mount that like button. As a reminder, we're not watching anymore right now, Trendlin. If you send me super chats, I'm gonna cash them in another day, okay? We have business here. Jesus. Damn you, Trendlin. Those songs are too catchy. Trendlin is always causing problems. Can I just say that? All right. So, guys, remember, we will be watching the rest of this tomorrow. We're not going to get through all of it today, but we're going to get through as much as we get through. Apparently, there's a teen panel at the end, so we are going to be watching part 2 of this tomorrow. And I appreciate you guys coming out today. Let's see how far we get before 7 p.m. All right, back to reality.
Also remembering to talk about pop culture, music, art, videos, utilizing, for me, especially African-American vernacular. It's important. Talking about pleasure, talking about stereotypes, celebration of Black and brown people throughout history and in movements is important to understand culture and awareness of how we're moving this issue forward. Also talking about acknowledging cultural messaging around sex and differences in how these concepts can be applied in the space that they're in. So we want to talk about including all of those things. But then when talking about outcomes, there are specific learning and experiential outcomes that we want to see embedded into a curriculum. And there are 4 distinct learning outcomes that we talk about. The first is increased critical consciousness, awareness of systems.
What? Hello. Keep in mind they're talking about a sex ed curriculum. And they have a list of things you need to embed in your sex ed curriculum. And the very first thing they say is an increased an awareness of critical consciousness. What's critical consciousness mean? She did. She said the C word. Two C words today, in fact. No, there's going to be a Zoom call, Beth. We don't start until 7. It's 6:30. 2 C words. Increased critical consciousness. Oh, sorry, Phil. I'll get the link to you. Hang on. Yep, she just gave it away. Critical means critical theory, which is Marxism. Communism, another C word. Critical means socialism. Marxism. Let's rewind. That caught me off guard. I didn't think that was gonna be quite as overt.
Potential outcomes that we want to see embedded into a curriculum. And there are 4 distinct learning outcomes that we talk about. The first is increased critical consciousness, awareness of systems that such as anti-Blackness, fat phobia, colorism, and their impact on present-day experiences of sexuality. This also includes skill building and development for effectively naming and dismantling these systems. We also want increased capacity for self-reflection, increased ethical competence, and increased self-mastery. So that means awareness of one's own body and its needs and capacity to engage with that as you move through your sexual experiences. One thing to note when we're talking about learning outcomes is also 2 things that emerged that were very important, which were increased sense of physical safety when youth are participating in a program and increased sense of psychological safety. So we can't forget that when we're talking about developing curriculum and delivering curriculum. I do want to be able to touch on temperament for educators and what we want to see from educators. So internal, racially just and equitable facilitators need to have a politicized understanding of their own and others' identities. It is important to do the work, understand the biases that you have and bring to the table based on your experiences and upbringing, and how that impacts how do you deliver sex education. Exceptional emotional intelligence. We hear that term a lot. It's kind of become a buzzword, but emotional intelligence is something that everyone has to talk about sex and how that engages both the mind and body. Educators should also have exceptional self-reflection and awareness. There might be times where it's difficult to do the work, especially in a racial just and equitable way. And even then, you need time to self-reflect on how to deliver the best program to your young people. There are also some external factors, which include actively increased inclusivity and accessibility, perpetual responsiveness and flexibility to shifts in the environment and students' experiences, willingness to embrace where students are in their learning experience, and ability to talk about race. It's important. We hear a lot from young people that they want that acknowledged because we don't live in a colorblind society. So bringing that practice into to have comfortability talking about sex is important. Sorry, y'all, my Georgia accent gets in the way of me talking sometimes. For people who are not of color, for our white educators, actively pursuing partnerships with educators and trainers of color is important for learning and coaching so that you are acknowledging the ways that we're different and how you can bring those ways that we are different into your classroom. We recognize that there's no way for all of us to know all about everything in doing this work. So we have to lean on each other for supports to make sure that our youth are getting the best possible education and care that they can. Also, using a peer system for accountability is important. We need to know when to call each other call each other frontward to change behaviors, and having a peer system is important to that. The last thing that I want to talk about are administrative practices. So we want to make sure that we're building systems that are ideal and equitable. We want to make space to support Black and Brown leadership and make sure this genuine and not a check the box approach. We want to respect as authorities and experts in our work, our Black and Brown leaderships, and provide opportunities for caucusing. A lot of times there are spaces where we as people of color need to talk to other people of color about what we've experienced. So how are you providing space for that so that your educators are in an environment where they can thrive? We also want to address work conditions and stop using people of color as identities as replacement for sound curricula. It's a Band-Aid, and we really want to make sure that they are not being used as pawns to check a box. So having a system where you can check your administrative practice.
Hang on. All right, let's put you to the test, Dr. Gamma D. I think I learned what equitable systems mean. What does equitable system mean? And this is a pop quiz for everyone. And we'll see if Dr. Gamma D has the right answer. What does equitable systems mean? Pop quiz. What does equitable systems mean? Socialism! Exactly. You did figure it out. You did figure it out. Kind of. Yup. Well, equity is inherently unequal because equity means an unequal distribution of resources based on identity group and stuff like that. So it could be unequal. Marxism, socialism. Marxism, equitable systems means socialism. Socialist systems, communist systems, socialism. The one that produces equal outcomes, which is socialism. It's socialism. The implementation of socialism. Tayton's always going to go for the extra credit. The abolition of private property and collectivism is replacing it. Marxism, a little typo there, Beth, but that's all right. Exactly. Well done, Dr. Gamma D. See, I'm always nervous when people say, I think I know the answer to this, because I'm like, oh no, did they really know the answer to that, or do I have to tell them they're wrong? But in this case, it worked out well. Yeah, Gloria's got some extra credit as well. Everyone is the same, from everyone according to their ability and to everyone according to their need, determined by the state. Well, that's the key, isn't it? Their need is not determined by them. Their need is determined by the state. Socialism only results in equal outcomes for everyone. The party elite do very well. Everyone else does poorly. Also, stop checking the box means stop using merit-based boxes. It does, doesn't it, Talking Story? Well done.
And give your staff the best situation possible to deliver this curriculum.
Good. Thank you, Tate, and I appreciate it.
That was a lot, but I really encourage all of you to read the document that we have put together for you. You can find it on the Sex Education Collaborative website. It's called Centering Racial Justice in Sex Education, Strategies for Engaging Professionals and Young People. You can download it for free. And we also have in there a organizational assessment that you can use to get started to see where your organization falls in doing this work. There's a glossary for some terms if you're not sure what it means. And I am always available to answer any questions that you may have about this project and how you can go about doing this work in your setting.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rena.
Nope, Rosa, that one starts on Wednesday. Not
work
yet.
that you continue to lead, and excited that this particular resource will be available to folks. So I just want to note before we transition to our youth panel, young people's panel, that the webinar is being recorded and that the recording will be shared with everyone who registered. And that includes the slides and the links to all of the resources that you're going to hear about during today's webinar. So I just wanted to make sure that that is clear for folks. We appreciate all of the questions that you continue to enter into the Q&A portion for the chat, and we encourage your engagement and are excited that you all are asking great questions and making sure that you are involved in this process with us. So we're now going to transition to the young people's part of our webinar today. And I'm always excited to hear from young folks. As someone
I
who started
love it when
off
they
in
put
this movement
teenagers on the
as a young
internet.
person, it's important to make sure that you hear what young people need to say about what they want, what they're hoping for, and the support that we can offer as grown kids. I'm not a young kid anymore. I'm a youthful elder, but it's important to be mindful that young people definitely have a part to
A
play and
youthful
that they need
elder?
to be seen and heard by us.
Wow.
As we're the ones who are doing the work, we get to show them and teach them and learn from them in this process. I'm excited to welcome the panel of young folks who are going to share their firsthand experiences and discuss what they wish they
Yes,
were learning in
okay.
sex education.
As a reminder, Rosa, I didn't ban you from the Substack. That's not true. As a reminder, it is not the fault of the children in this presentation that the adults have lied to them their entire lives. We do not make fun of children on this channel. Everything that you say in the chat is public and will reflect on me and be used against me. And so if you are making fun of the children on this panel, I'm going to remove your chat and I'm going to time you out. And if you do it again, I'm going to block you because we do not make fun of children on this panel. Rosa, I didn't ban you from locals either. I took down a post you made that was inappropriate. So please, guys, rein it in. We are allowed to talk about what they're saying, but no personal attacks on the kids because this is not their fault. It's not their ideology. It is the cult ideology that they have been indoctrinated into by the people that they trusted.
We'll also hear from...
Hang on, I got a super chat from Mountain Goddess. Thank you, Mountain Goddess. I sent a late super a couple days ago, but the stream had ended. I was asking if more people are wanting to learn more. I was asking if more people are wanting to learn more now than 3 years ago. Oh, sorry, I didn't see that. No, I think less people are wanting to learn now than 3 years ago, actually. I mean, like, this stuff was a really hot topic 3 years ago, and now it's not anymore because the news cycle isn't pushing it anymore. And so I find there are less people who want to learn. Now, I'm very lucky in that I've developed a community around this stuff and I've developed, a mailing list about people who are very active regardless of what the news cycle says. But I think things have actually gotten worse, not better, sadly. Thank you for the super chat. Appreciate it.
Answer about new articles that have been written by their teen staff about the importance of racial and reproductive justice for youth and the lessons they have available on what racial and reproductive justice are, why Black mothers don't talk to their children about sex, and the sexualization of AAPI, Asian American Pacific Islander women. I'm excited to introduce Dan Rice, who is the executive director of Answer, and the youth panelists who work with Fact Forward, Advocate for Youth, and Sex, etc. These are teen staff writers. And so I want to introduce Dan Rice, Sabrine, Gabriella, Lania, Serna, Sophia, and Brianne. Welcome, all of you.
Thanks so much, Marietta. I'm going to ask all the panelists to please turn on their cameras and we'll get started. All right. Great. Welcome, everyone. I feel so honored to have the opportunity to talk with all of you today and to share your expertise and your experiences with everybody who's joining us this afternoon. So, Sophia, I'd like to actually start off with you. Since you are still in high school, I would love to hear a little bit about what your K-12 sex education experience is, and specifically if racial justice was a lens that was used within your sex education.
My experience was not at all comprehensive. In 4th through 6th grade, I remember distinctly, like, we were separated by gender, and which did not make sense at all to me. And then, in middle school, I remember, like, the year that we were supposed to really learn about sex education and really dig into it, I went through like 3 different teachers. So I never even really got the opportunity to get super, super comfortable in it and get through like full lessons and stuff. And then obviously the pandemic came and it cut my classes short as well. So my main sources when it came to sex education have been coming from just working at Sex Etc., which has been a really great opportunity, and also Teen Pep, which is a program at my school where peer educators teach freshmen about sex education.
What?
But all of these opportunities, while I'm very grateful for them,
wait. There are programs in schools where seniors teach freshmen about sex. Does that strike anyone else as something that might not be the best idea that's ever happened? Excuse me, what?
Etc., which has been a really great opportunity, and also Teen Pep, which is a program at my school where peer educators teach freshmen about sex education.
Oh, good.
But all
good.
of these opportunities, while I'm very grateful for them, they're not something that everyone gets. And I think that everyone really should be getting them. Racial justice was not a part of it at all.
Sophia, I know you're in New Jersey. I'd love to hear from Gabriella. Gabriella, I know you work with Fact Forward. Did you also go to school in South Carolina?
I did. So I did move from New York in my elementary school days, but I know even like when I moved down here, there was a big difference between the schools. So like schools in New York didn't really talk about sex education or really any racial justice at all. And I know when I got to South Carolina, as soon as I hit middle school, it was always a 1 week based where they talked about just the simple kinds of education when it came to sex, but it was always like hormones and like what does your body go through, and it was always very simple. I have been blessed with a mom who actually, had to talk at an early age. So I wasn't as much as clueless as maybe other people were. But at the same time, like there was still questions that,
Paulo
we were going
Fiere's
to ask
sex ed.
and things like that. And as I got to high school, it was kind of basically the same concept, which you go through with your hormones, the different STDs and the different STIs. So, being able to work with Fact Forward has really opened up like different things for me, because I was able to also know like more information than what you get at school and more resources in terms of information as well.
Great. Thanks, Gabriella. Speaking of talking with your parents and your parents having the talk with you, Sabrina, I know during your time at Sex Etc., you wrote a story about this. Could you tell everybody a little bit about that story and why you thought it was important to write it?
Yes, I'd love to. So yeah, during my time at Sex Etc., I got the opportunity to write a story about why Black parents don't speak to their daughters about sex. Really what kind of motivated that was my personal experience with that. I was also blessed with a mom who was very open to allowing me to ask questions about sex and health education as a whole. Never really shamed me for it. But I did also run into a lot of instances with other family members in which that would happen often. And it also seemed that a lot of my other peers who are young Black women who identified as young Black women were experiencing those experiences as well. And so that kind of inspired me to, when I start that conversation, or continue the conversation, I should say, surrounding that. And yeah, I got the chance to kind of like give voices to some of the experiences of people that I was around, and kind of dive into the history behind why that is the case and why it seems that each generation continues to kind of carry on this stigma around the young Black girls and families questioning and feeling curious about how sex education works.
Thank you for doing that. Serena, you also wrote a story for Sex Etc. I'd love if you could do the same, share with the audience a little bit about the story and why you thought it was important to write it.
Yeah, of course. Sorry, my connection might be a little bit choppy right now. But I wrote a story about the sexualization of API women, and specifically like East Asian women for Sex Etc. a month or two ago. And it was inspired by the events that kind of sparked the Stop Asian Hate movement in 2021. So like the spa shootings in Atlanta. And also as my personal experiences as an East Asian girl in America. And it was just a lot of like microaggressions that I had picked up from my peers and also from like adults, and also the experiences of my like fellow East Asian like women that I've heard from, that inspired me to write the article. But I think it was a really important kind of story to put out there, because especially because a lot of people are paying attention to the sexualization and like the fetishization of East Asian women because of the events of 2021. And I thought that I'd kind of keep the conversation going.
Thanks, Serena. Linnea, I know you're a youth advocate with that.
All right, guys, since we are about 10 minutes away from 7 p.m., I think I'm going to cut the presentation there. That gets us about halfway. We did get a little bit into this kids panel, and I think we can already surmise that we're probably going to get some more information about this. But sadly, we do have to wrap things up for today because I have a community supporter call starting in about 8 minutes. And so please do forgive me for that. But you can come and join us if you like. If you would like to take part in my community supporter call, there are lots of ways you can do that. You can support my work on Locals. You can support my work on Patreon. You can become a Twitter subscriber. You can become a YouTube channel member. But the best way to do it, and the way that I would recommend, is by becoming a paid supporter on my Substack, because that is my primary platform that I do focus on. It's where I post all my best content. It's where I get the most views. It's where I get the most basically results of everything I do. So Substack is the place to be. It's where I'm going to recommend everyone head over to. And when you join for $8 a month or $80 a year, you are going to get access to not only the supporter call that's going to start at 7 p.m., but you're also going to get access to this week's Spy Stream Extravaganza, which is going to be awesome. We are going inside a live woke training. We're going to show you what's really happening, and the only way to join us live is to become a supporter on the channel. If you want the Zoom links to our community call, you can head over to the Unwoke Roundup email that I sent out yesterday, and then scroll all the way down to the bottom. And underneath this red box right here for paid supporters, you will get access to the link for today, which is going to be at 7 p.m. You're going to get access to the link for what? Well, actually, no, we aren't going to be doing one on Wednesday. My bad. We can't do one on Wednesday because I'm doing the other thing. My bad. I just put 2 and 2 together. This is how calendars work, apparently. I have learned that. Okay, so never mind. We're not doing a Wednesday call this week, but normally we would. And that would normally be where you would find access to it. But I will make it up to you on Saturday, because Saturday we do have a Bitchcraft. And so on Saturday at 3 p.m., we will be convening together for Bitchcraft as well. Thank you, Benjamin Jackson. I do appreciate it. I know, Bot, because when I made the newsletter last night, it didn't occur to me that I was going to be busy during that time on Wednesday. All right. The Silence Lesbian, it's good to see you as always. I hope you're doing well. Thank you for the work you do, always exposing the truth. I am trying my best, girl. Trying my best. All right, guys. Well, it seems as though Ethan Rouse' little cancel brigade never actually manifested into anything. Oh, wow. I knew that wasn't going to be an issue in the first place, because, I mean, how sad. How sad. Has he even tweeted about me yet or anything? Is like, I know he was doing a stream about me. How sad that this dude started a stream 54 minutes ago. Look at this. This asshole started a stream 54 minutes ago about me, and they haven't shown up in my Twitter feed, and they didn't even grace us with their presence in the chat. I'm so very sorry, Ethan, that I really had nothing to be afraid of from you. I'm so very sorry that it didn't work out the way that you had hoped. But we're going to go have our community call now. And you women can keep screaming on the internet about how the mean woman wrote an essay that you didn't like. You can cry those salty tears, Ethan. We'll drink them. It's okay. The more you guys cry on the internet, Ethan, the more fodder I have. It's all good, bro. All good. All right, guys. That's all we have for right now. I'm going to go get ready for the supporter call. I will see some of you guys in Zoom very, very soon. Thank you for hanging out with us today. We will be back tomorrow to finish up that presentation. So take care, guys. We'll see you soon. Bye.